The power of a single entity or individual is remarkable. But when those individuals come together in perfect harmony, that's when the real magic happens. It's amazing what we can achieve when we work as one. The strength and support and unity is where true progress is born. Together, we can grow, create new and brilliant things, find innovative solutions, and spark inspiration in others. By collaborating, teaching others, and sharing our wisdom, we have the opportunity to change the world for our people and planet, for the greater good. It's about the power of the collective. It is unity. It is Kishugu, for the greater good.
Kishugu has its roots over 26 years ago when with the original Forest Fire Association in the Lowveld, where we did firefighting with aircraft in the forestry industry. And over a long period of time it grew, but there was always a vision. I've had a vision to have a global company, specifically initially in fire management, and it morphed into the FFA group of companies, having its roots in the Firefighting Association, and recently as this week, last week, we rebranded to Kishugu. Fire management is not what everybody thinks, just suppressing fires, because that's where the damage occurs. But the big challenge is to get farmers to understand that it's not just putting out fires, that it's actually it's a process through a whole year. Fire prevention and management, and at the end of the day, fire suppression should be one of the smallest components.
So if I said to you, Chris, I'm setting up a farm, I need some advice, how do you go from step one all the way through?
Well, what I do is I put together a management plan, look at your fuel loads, look at where you should put fire breaks in, manage the fuel loads. If you're not grazing them or utilizing them, burn them. And then put in place a management plan where you can, in terms of your management plan, where you can react if you have wildfires.
And I said to you about equipment then, you also supply all the equipment?
We do. The company Kishugu has a whole lot of different brands and divisions, but we look at what we call the cradle to grave model. So in fire management, we offer from training all the way through to burning, suppression, ground and air, and then we manufacture all the tools. We manufacture fire trucks. We've got a company that distributes fire management tools. We do the whole value chain.
On the agricultural side, how much of an expense is it to a farmer to become properly involved in fire prevention?
In terms of what a farmer needs to do, the minimum he needs to do is join the local Fire Protection Association, which is formed in terms of the Act, Act 101 of 1998. And normally joining it would cost you, in some areas as low as 200 Rand a year, and it depends based on a hectare basis. But what that does is it gives you an organization which you link to, and you have access to a dispatch and coordination system, and then farmers can help each other. Look, in terms of the Act, the farmer has to have his own equipment and prepare his own fire breaks. But what can happen is you can have a collective. If a group of farmers want to work together. But asking about the expense of fire management, it's not that expensive. If you've got a grain farm of 1,000 hectares and you train up 5 or 6 of your laborers that work for you, you buy them cotton overalls, which is overalls they use. You just focus on buying cotton and not having something with no plastic in it. And you buy simple beaters. Then you've got a firefighting team, and you've got a bakisaki, which is a slip-on unit on the back of your vehicle. You've got tractors and implements which you already spray herbicide with. You can convert to spraying. For very little cost, you can develop a fire suppression and even a fire management tool, because those 6 people are trained up properly. They're qualified. They have the right training, and it's 2-3 days training. They're then able to apply fire safely on the farm and fight fire safely.
I'm going to digress a little bit, because with great sadness I've watched many occasions the side of Table Mountain burning. Now, if the right equipment was there, could that have been prevented?
I think you must look.
Am I being unfair?
No. But it's a good question. The problem with fire management is the public look at suppression, and they think that if you can have a bigger helicopter and better equipment and bigger yellow or red fire trucks, it's going to take away the problem. It's not. For example, Table Mountain, which is in the Western Cape biome, the fynbos that occurs there, it depends. It can vary between 7 and 30 years, but it needs to burn. It actually thrives on fire. It's adapted to fire. So if you keep fire out of the system, everything will burn eventually. Once the conditions are right, it will burn. It's flammable and it requires fire to rejuvenate. So the idea is that because it's in an area that's being managed, the fire should be applied on a controlled basis, not allowing it to burn under those really disastrous conditions when that normally happens. So if you don't have controlled fire and you allow it to grow to the point of where you have a fire, then it becomes catastrophic.
Johan Heine from Kishugu, you have probably one of the most interesting situations in your hands that I think scares a lot of people, but is a very necessary part of not only the agricultural community, but for the wildlife community and for preservation. And that's you fight fires from the air.
Yes, since 1986 I've been involved. 85 I was the first pilot in Mpumalanga that got involved in aerial firefighting, and since then we've grown the business to cover the whole country and actually starting to get involved in Australia and South America.
How advanced are we, or how backward are we in fighting fire from the air?
We're very advanced. I think we're one of the most advanced countries in the world. We lean and mean. We're very fast on the fires. Our resources are adequately spread throughout the country, and the government the last 10 years have really contributed considerably in order to cover the rest of the country, because they started with the forestry industry protecting their assets, but the need to protect the rest of the landowners throughout the country became sort of evident, and the government stepped in and supplying resources.
Now you have to have dams nearby, obviously, or some form of water, and you scoop it, don't you?
There's two. With the helicopters we scoop out of the dams. There's an adequate dams in the country. We've never had a problem with not having adequate dams, sometimes a bit further, but adequate. And then the second, we've just brought in the first air tractor 802s, which carry 3,000 litres and are worldwide used, and we're now introducing the new modern fixed wing technology in the country.
So what it's got is an aircraft, but instead of passenger seats or cargo inside, you've got great big tanks.
Yes.
And you fill them up on the ground.
That's right.
It must be an almighty task taking off some very powerful engines there.
Yes, it's over 1,000 horsepower engines, then 3 tons of water, and they've got a computerized door to optimize the dump and to compensate for the speed, the height, and the type of fire. You actually program it, and it dumps with a computer the door.
Now, the average farmer cannot afford to have one on standby. So how does he get to use your facility at Kishugu?
The Working on Fire program, Kishugu implements the Working on Fire program, which is a government program. We implement on their behalf. So the Working on Fire program is well known throughout the country, and the FPAs, the Fire Protection Associations, are closely linked to Working on Fire, and the farmers are members of the FPA. So through that structure, through the FPA structure and Working on Fire, it's relatively easy, if you do your homework, to get access to aerial support and even support on the ground for any landowner, any farmer in the country.
Obviously, coming from the Western Cape, I'm disheartened, saddened, tearful sometimes to see Table Mountain on fire. And some years ago, it was horribly on fire. Were you responsible for dousing that fire as well?
Yes, we've been, for the last 10 years, been quite intensively involved in the Western Cape, and we put also covering the whole Western Cape during the summer. And fortunately, the fynbos vegetation from time to time needs fire, but we focus on the unwanted fires.
Let's finish off on this point. We've talked about South Africa. Is Kishugu handling anything across the border?
Yes, definitely. Swaziland and neighboring countries, Mozambique, we do react to that. Just probably did have it yesterday, but FFA, which was the Forest Fire Association, started in 1986. So we've got nearly 30 years of experience. We've recently changed to Kishugu for various reasons. So it's a new area, a new dawn, where we will implement for the government, we will expand internationally, and it's a very exciting time for us.